Welcome to Mindshift. I'm Brandon, and today is my channel's 1-year anniversary here on YouTube. Exactly 1 year ago today, I posted this video here on prayer, and when I did, I had absolutely no idea what this channel would turn into. And so that's kind of what I want to do with today's video. I want to interrupt our typical Tuesday takedown here and walk through the last year. Now, if you like anything that I do on this channel at all, I would just encourage you to stick around for this one. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and if not, totally okay. But I want to at least be able to say thank you. I want to share what has happened over the last year. I want to talk about lessons learned. I want to talk about the community here. I want to talk about future goals for the channel. For those of you that are interested, I'll be covering some statistics and some highlights and just content overview in general. But I think the best way that we could start is just with a recap. How did I get here? What is the purpose of this channel? What was I thinking when I created it? And so if you'll indulge me, I'd love to just kind of share the Mindshift story with you. I won't get into my full deconversion story. You can go check that out on your own. But I have been an atheist now for about 4 to 5 years, kind of depending on how you view things. My deconstruction process was probably, honestly, looking back, it was so much of my adult life, but it got very targeted and serious for about 3 years before my deconversion. I was raised Christian. I was born on the mission field. I went to Christian schools. Every single person in my life that I knew and was surrounded by, whether they were friends or friends' parents or coaches or anything, was a Christian, save for a few friends in the neighborhood that I grew up in. I was insulated, I was indoctrinated, and I loved the Bible. I loved learning and studying and memorizing and applying. I believed I had a real and personal relationship with my Savior, Jesus Christ, and I oriented my life around that concept. I married a Christian woman. We had kids and started raising them Christian. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, I felt compelled to really make sure that I knew what I believed and why I believed it. And the main catalyst for this was really when my first child began to get a little bit older. And I felt the responsibility of truth, of making sure that I, as one of the main influences in their life, was telling them truth, that I knew that it was truth, that I could show why it was truth. And at that point, all those doubts that I had had for so many years, and sometimes they weren't even as strong as doubts, just questions, just things I had put to the side, issues I had seen and shelved, they all came back into center view, and I had to deal with them one by one. And a lot of the videos that you see on the channel are exactly what I went through as I dealt with things issue by issue by issue by issue, verse by verse by verse by verse. And at the end of this massive deconstruction, I simply did not have my faith anymore. I simply was not convinced of this God, and thus atheism. No hatred for God, no bitterness for Christians or even of the church. And how it all started, just to cut to the chase, is I actually had started a booktube channel. I love to read, and I just wanted to have a nice little place where I could talk about books since no one in my life really cared. And I had a very small channel. I did it for over 2 years and had maybe 4,000 people when I decided to start this second channel. So for all of the people who tell me, oh, you're just doing this to make money because the channel's gotten a little bit bigger. No, I was perfectly content making zero on my booktube channel. But what happened is I would start covering some books that I was reading that were more theological or more philosophical, that had tie-ins to how we conceptualize God, how we think about God, what are the proofs for God, and things like this. And many people responded to that saying, oh, that's interesting. Are you an atheist? Tell us more about that. And so I made a deconversion video just to kind of state where I was coming from. And the response to that video was A, the largest response that I had gotten on any of the videos that I had done, and B, so many people saying, thank you. This was so helpful. This was so normalizing. But have you ever thought about this? And then I would make a video response to one of those comments, and it led to another and another. And before I knew it, I was doing this thing called Sunday School, where even on my booktube channel, I had been doing 1 episode a week covering a biblical topic. And then it got to a point where so much of the booktube audience, I could tell, did not like these videos. And so many of the people watching these Sunday School videos could have cared less about the booktube stuff. And I thought, should I just make a second channel? And so I did. And then I was doing both for a short period of time, and I realized this is what I care about more. And the intention actually at the beginning of this channel was, oh, I'm going to cover a lot of philosophy. I want to cover logical fallacies. I want to cover logic in general. I want to cover rationality. I want to cover all religions and theology. And that is maybe the departure that happened that I am sad about. We got very heavy into atheism as it relates to Christianity. And this is my background. This is what I am very, I think, capable of talking about. And I have sneaked in some other religions and some bits of philosophy and some bits of rational thinking. But as you saw with the rebranding of the new logo, my title screen now is Theology, Philosophy, Rationality. And we'll get to future plans for the channel here at the end of the video. But suffice it to say, I want to make sure that I am being a little more well-rounded as we go forward. Don't worry, we're still going to do all the same content that you guys are here for. Nothing's changing, just additions. So that's where it all started. This is where we are now. And I thought it would be fun to look back over the last year. So let's move into our second agenda point where we talk about highlights and a content overview. I'd love to just walk through kind of the evolution of the channel and all the different things that we got into. So it started with those videos on specific topics, prayer or free will or omniscience. And then, like everyone on YouTube, I wanted to do some kind of reaction video. And the first one I did was with Mike Winger on a video where he says, you can't judge God. And thus was born the Tuesday Takedown. So for each of these categories that I'm going to cover with you, I've got a playlist, by the way. And since that first Tuesday Takedown, we have done one every single Tuesday without fail for the last year. That I think is a staple of the channel. The next staple of the channel became the Sunday video, something to replace the time that many of us were used to spending in church or in Christian communities that we may no longer feel as welcomed in or as comfortable in. The goal with these was to take a deeper dive, again, into some of those topical videos, but also into scripture itself. There were some secondary playlists born out of this, like Let the Bible Refute Itself, but the Sunday videos are a bit of a catch-all where we can look at God's character, we can look at the issues with the Bible, we can look at what is going on in atheism or Christianity, and I think those are probably my favorite. And then at some point, getting back to my booktube roots, I wanted to start doing book reviews, and the plan originally was to cover many books that were written by atheists or books that were from Christian apologists and break them down. And I thought we should really just start with the book. And thus was born Secular Bible Study Series. In less than an hour, ideally, you would understand a high-level overview of what the book contains, its place in history, its accuracy or inaccuracy, its authorship, its themes, its literary analysis, and of course, the problems and contradictions within it. Also, early on, a big part of the channel to me was going to be helpful. I didn't just want to be some angry atheist making scathing remarks about how horrible this God is. And even though I make videos that can sometimes sound like that, it is with the desired goal of freeing people from their incorrect attachments that are still producing harm in their life because of the fear that has been put into them by certain understandings of this religion. So I think more than fair, but a big part of it was deconversion help. This is where I shared my deconversion story. This is where I talked about best practices maybe for how to come out. This is where I've talked about deconstruction and what that process looks like, or how to get over your fear of hell, the difference between atheism and nihilism. Videos like this are in this kind of a collection where I hope that those that are really struggling, that are recent deconverts, can have a place to get some actual useful information for practical application in their daily life. For a while there, at the beginning, I was doing something called Saturday Shorts. And by a while, I mean like 17 weeks. These videos were under 10 minutes and they were just quick, whatever was on my mind. And the first attempt I had at doing anything that was a little bit shorter in length. I think there's some gems in there personally. So if you want to check out that playlist, it's one that many newcomers might not be familiar with at all. Then I actually took a stab into doing shorts. I was doing 4 to 5 shorts for every episode that I put out, and I just hated it. It didn't feel like the goal of the channel. So after 64 of those, I said, I'm not doing shorts. That's just not going to be a part of the channel. I have since found a nice compromise for myself. I've come out with the mini Mindshifts, which are pretty new. These are 5 minute or less. I typically try to take the best part or a closing remark or a final thought from one of my other videos where I know many people just don't make it to the end of the video, and that's totally fair. And this way people can see more of the content. I can cover some of my more important points, and hopefully usually attract people that just are looking for shorter content. And then I have atheism shouldn't be so confusing. And that is just all the misconceptions about atheism, all the bad arguments for atheism. And I probably have more videos that actually need to go into that playlist, so I'll be reviewing that. Then I have another one, which is when Christians respond. These are videos that I try to do to counter some of the most common Christian quips that us atheists often get. I have a few videos on logical fallacies, a few videos on arguments for God or arguments against God, and then I did start a series that I need to get back to and I love dearly, and that is Dissecting the Divine. It is a fascinating dissection of Yahweh, and I'd encourage you to check those out, and I will encourage myself to get back into the rhythm of making those videos. One of my last playlists that I haven't covered is Mindshift on other channels, and this has been where I've been able to collab or have dialogues or conversations, and I just want to point to some of those videos because there's not that many. The very first thing I did was an interview with Skeptic Haven, and it was so interesting to me to get to speak with two other people from a similar background, and this was my first feeling of that. Oh, I can have these conversations. I can find like-minded people. So that was pretty cool. I think the next thing I did was my interview on Harmonic Atheist. Shout out to him. Absolutely amazing channel, letting people go through their deconversion stories, essentially. And I think that's so helpful to so many people. After that, I got my first invitation to be on the line, which was cool. I didn't seek that out. It was something that I knew about. Matt Dillahunty played a role in my own deconversion. And a lot of what helped me was debates. I would watch Alex O'Connor or Matt Dillahunty do some of these debates. And of course, I would go back and watch Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris and things like this. And it was a love and hate thing. I honestly hated some of how debates go. And this is why I haven't done formal debates yet. I have a big interest in it, but I hate that a lot of it is performative. I hate that a lot of it is how quippy can you be, or how snarky, or what great point can you make, instead of necessarily what is true. And I do know that many debates try to source that out, and that the goal is never, of course, to convince the other person that you are right. That's not going to happen. Frank Turek is never going to be convinced in a debate that Christianity is not true. But it's for the crowd. It's for the people who view it later. And that is where I do want to be able to do these things. But there's a part of me that just doesn't want to engage in a style that is open to being more about who's a better arguer than what is the truth. Now, I'm not slamming everyone who does debates. I thank you. They have been massively beneficial in my life. But those are my personal concerns with it, and something that I'm still trying to iron out. All that to say, I am confident in the future at some point I will partake in actual debates. But for now, I want to do more of what this next video is, where I had my first dialogue with someone on the other side of the fence, and Trent Horn and I had a conversation about my video on heaven. I loved that conversation. Those are the kind of conversations I want to have. It didn't go perfect. I didn't say everything I wanted to say. I wish I would have pressed harder on other things, but getting to just talk about this thing that is such a big part of my life with someone else from the other side in a pretty gracious manner, and knowing that that was beneficial to both sides, that both sides are hearing more intricacies into what they believe and why, or the issues with it, or the pros for it. After that, Paula J reached out, which was so cool. That was kind of the first moment of like, wow, like, yeah, it was awesome being on the line and getting to speak with Trent Horn, but it was someone that I had really watched that now was asking me to do something on their channel. I want to do more collabs with him. I think Paul is just wonderful, and he's been really kind in some personal communication in the meantime. Then I did a second appearance on the line, or I should say the hang up. And then just very recently, I did a podcast episode with Deep Drinks, where I had a lovely conversation. So that was a lot, but let me at least give you some high-level overview, statistic-wise, of how this first year has gone, and I promise I won't go nearly into the weeds as I was thinking about. In the last year, I have had 4.6 million views, 900,000 hours of watch time. Again, 43,000 of you have subscribed so far, which, let's just take a second, that blows my mind. Again, I thought 4,000 on my BookTube channel was huge. I never, ever expected. This wasn't something I thought was going to get this big. And I know compared to some channels, this is not big. But I also recognize that within people that start a YouTube channel, this is like a jackpot. And I don't take that for granted. Also, just with the support that is coming in and how many of you are attentive and viewing and engaging, I know that this is going to continue to grow. It almost scares me sometimes because it was just never what I intended. A sincere thank you to each one of you that has subscribed. And just a quick caveat saying, if you watch this channel and you enjoy it, would you consider supporting it in a higher fashion by subscribing, by turning on notifications, by giving a like on each video, dropping a comment, even if it's just a thumbs up or a thanks or a how you doing? It honestly helps the channel. I'll talk about that more in a later point with the money that's coming in and what the plans are and things like that. But I say it at the end of each video, if this is something you believe in or you just enjoy the content, would you consider supporting in some way? And for those of you that have gone as far as to do Patreon, it blows me away. Thank you so much. It's needed and necessary and incredibly helpful. Even if you only give the minimum or one of the smaller tiers, it is not something that I think, ugh, I can't believe they wouldn't just give 5 or 10 or more or whatever. No, I am blown away, shocked, and massively thankful for every single dollar that anyone would think to take the time to sign up for a Patreon account and do. Thank you. Here's a fun look at the views and how they have changed over time. I have, if we don't count shorts or the new mini Mindshifts, done roughly 180 videos in the last year, which breaks down to essentially 3.5 videos a week on average. Some have done horribly and some have just completely exploded. I still haven't had, it's interesting. I try not to compare myself. Those thoughts exist. Of course they do. But I don't have any videos over 200,000 views. And many people with far less videos than myself and less subscribers or more subscribers will have 500,000, 1 million views on particular videos. Mine has been slow and steady. And I think that's a benefit. I think it's wonderful not to have one particular video that defines your channel or one reason that people have subscribed. I am hoping that if you're here and you're part of the community, it's because on average, most of my videos can contribute some kind of value to your life in some capacity, no matter how small. And I think that the stats kind of show that. I do have a couple more popular videos than others. I'll show you this really quick. My video on heaven is my #1 video. That's at 194,000 views. On God's hypocrisy, where I did the 200 verses and 20 examples of God's not objective moral standard, is my second most viewed. That's 172. Then one of my very first videos on rationalizing redemption, which I'm blurry for most of it. The lighting's terrible, but the content, I think, spoke to a lot of people. And it is essentially this whole story about Jesus and being a savior and redemption and atonement for sin. It makes no sense. And it's funny to me that with just how bad that video is comparatively, it has done so well. Then I had my response to Redeemed Zoomer. That's over 100,000. And that's it. 4 videos over 100,000. Some of the next popular ones here are my response to Braxton Hunter on answering tough questions for atheists, my video on if you can really understand if God is talking to you or not, where I make that big response video to Vlad. Then it's my response to Mike Winger on his hell apologetics, and so on. But I think it's so interesting to see what are people latching onto. Another fun stat is the average view duration. It's 12 minutes, and I make predominantly 30-minute on average videos, and sometimes much longer. And I know many of you are here for that, and you're the vocal minority. But this is something I do try to keep in mind. I don't want to pander to the people, but at the same time, I want content that reaches people in the way that they want to view it, and attention spans, for better or worse, are simply lower. I wanted to share this with you so that I can show you that even though many of you are willing, it is important for me, if I am actually sitting with the goal of the channel, which is to help people, to get my message out quicker and shorter. Thus, the mini mind shifts. Thus, some of the videos where I am more brief, or you'll hear me say, oh, I'm going on too long, I apologize. Even in this video, I feel like it's far too long already. The reality is I'm going to get about 10 minutes per video with most people, and I want to understand that and utilize it. So just some perspective into, again, kind of my thinking. Let's talk a little bit about you guys as an audience. First of all, this chart here, the purple shows returning viewers and the blue is new viewers. Now, this is good and bad. In terms of creating a community, the amount of return viewers that I get, the group of you that is so consistent in being here is phenomenal. Couldn't ask for more. So appreciate it. I feel like I genuinely know many of you. I recognize your handles. I reply as often as I can. It's getting harder as the channel grows, and I hope that you'll bear with me and understand. For instance, I've just chosen not to reply to comments in the mini mind shifts. It's too much. I want to do that for my 3 main videos a week, and even that is getting harder. So thank you for still commenting, even if I can't respond. It really helps and it means a lot. The fact that we get such low new viewers, I don't know. I don't understand that. Obviously the channel is growing. I actually think, well, you know what? I'll save it for lessons learned, but this is interesting. Here's something that's cool. I'll just put it up on the screen. Channels your audience also watches. Honestly, to be in the mix with them is a high compliment and just a really cool coming full circle kind of moment. Also something interesting, only 65% of my viewers are in the United States. And based off the kind of Christianity that this channel covers most often, I'm really interested that 35% is coming from outside this country. I think that's pretty cool. I love that it's more of a worldwide reach. I don't know how much we can trust YouTube's demographics, but it's heavily male. It's 3 male to 1 female, which I think is fine. That's also kind of the statistics for YouTube in general. It's kind of a male heavy platform, but nonetheless, I think that's interesting. While I'm looking at it, 53% of everyone who watches this channel is not subscribed to it. Come on, guys. Right now, go ahead, click the button. In terms of age demographic, it's really well split. I'll put this one up on the screen for you. I love this. I love that I'm not just reaching young people or older people who have already been through this process. I think this, by the numbers here, is showing it's for everyone. And that's one of the things I love about covering this topic in general. And getting to be a small voice in all of that, I think is just cool. I'm happy to be here. Let's move on really briefly. I just want to say a few things about the community. If my goal is helping people, what are the best ways to do that? Who should I be trying to reach? Is this a channel for atheists that have a place to come and just find community? Is it a place for those who are doubting to have a hopefully more calm and friendly person showing them the other side? Is it a place for that person in the middle of their deconstruction to dig into the weeds and get the data to make better decisions? Hopefully it's a little bit of all of that for everyone. And that's why I try to vary the videos and what we do here. But I do think often, what is my main goal? How can I be as effective as possible? And one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from many of you, and one of the things that I'm noticing for myself, is the community that is being created here. We're always going to have trolls, both Christian and atheist. We're always going to have people that are hateful, both Christians and atheists. It's YouTube, it's the internet, it's anonymous, it's a comment section. I get that. But despite those, I think the core group of people that choose to engage with my content are really creating a safe place. When I see someone share something from their childhood or a current harm that is happening to them because of religion, or even a personal loss in their life, and they share it in the comments, and hopefully myself, but even if I can't, I see so many of you saying, I feel you, I can relate to that. Thanks for sharing. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. How can I help? That's amazing to me. And I didn't really have high expectations for actual community. And I was someone that, again, not having any social media, had never made these kinds of connections before. And yet here we are, and I see it. And I think that it is, even for the amount of unhealth that happens in any comment section, pretty healthy, pretty encouraging. People that are like-minded in seeking truth. And I know we don't all agree with each other. And yet, where I see the common denominator is, again, what's true? I didn't want to be involved in something that's not true. I didn't want to commit my life or orient my life or represent something that's false. And those are the kind of people I want to be surrounded by. And I learn from you guys every single day. And I'm, again, so grateful for all of the engagement. With that said, let's move into lessons learned. I don't have a list. I haven't thought this out. I haven't thought any of this out. This has just been me talking to you guys, like most all of my videos. I don't script videos at all. This will never be word for word. The best I can do sometimes is put together an outline like what I'm working off today. For some of my more heavy videos on scripture, I definitely have to prepare that ahead of time. For my secular Bible study series, I read each book before. And if I have questions on something or I want to understand the authorship better, I'll hit some of these books up back here, or of course, online resources. And I try to be really careful about any research that I do. In some videos, I have covered studies and I always try to list those. And I'm not great. I'm getting better at citing sources all of the time. So hopefully you're starting to see that change. But getting back on track here, I guess I was talking about lessons learned. That would be one of them, is just documentation. Going back to what I just said, the goal is seeking truth. Having someone just spout out a bunch of their opinions, which this is also part of that. I don't claim to be perfect or only represent verifiable truth. I'm telling you guys a lot what I think. But when I do try to share something that is a statistic or something about scripture in general, I try to be hyper specific about it and make sure that I'm being accurate. So I guess lesson number 1 learned is that there's a responsibility that comes with having this much reach. And I do take it seriously, and I have taken it more seriously. And it's a hard balance because Again, most of this is off the cuff, but I also want it to be accurate. And that's two things that can be really hard. It's easy to contradict yourself when you're just talking. It's easy to say something you don't necessarily mean or get the verbiage wrong. And when you have exposure to the public where a lot of people who are Christians and watching it and looking for something to be wrong, they can just hone into that one thing you said in a way that you didn't really mean and misrepresent you completely. It's terrifying. It really is. I try not to engage too much with trolls. I do sometimes. Not everyone who is a Christian that disagrees with me is a troll, by the way. Of course not. But you can pretty easily tell the difference. And I'll just say right now, thank you to anyone who has disagreed with me in a healthy, mature way. It means a lot. I always read your comments. The one thing that I can say is I think so far that I've had this channel with tens of thousands, if not more comments. It's got to be more. I have read 90%. 95%. There are some handles that I just won't read anymore. I know what this person says. I know how they think. They're just here to insult or whatever, and I don't need it in my life. So there are some people that I just simply choose not to read. But if it's new or if it's someone that doesn't have this history, I read it. And so again, know that even if I can't respond, your words aren't wasted. And I know they help other people that are here too. But I was surprised at myself. If we're kind of doing a recap of what I've learned and seen over myself of the year, I was surprised by how much the negativity affected me. I had read some study a couple years ago that as soon as you get on any platform to 20,000 was kind of the tipping point, you get the potential for too much ego inflation from the people that are positive with you and absolute anxiety and depression potential from the people that are constantly telling you you're wrong, you're dumb, you're stupid, this isn't true, you're terrible. How could you think that? It is a lot. It is a barrage. And it's something that I wasn't ready for. The horrendous things that people say about me that have been purposely misrepresented on other channels or websites. It's something I don't think any human is evolved to deal with. And I understand. I've put myself out there. I've chosen to be public. This is just going to be something that happens. This is our world. And I think the pros outweigh the cons. But the cons are very real. And there have been times where I have absolutely almost said it's not worth it and I'm quitting. And I make sure to reserve that right for myself going forward. That first and foremost, I owe mental health and the ability to be present and positive with my family over anything else. And so far, I have been able to strike a balance. So learning how to negotiate and navigate that has been a huge one. Even lessons learned in terms of how long should I make the videos? How many videos should I put out? I know for a fact at this point, I'm doing myself a disservice putting out 3 videos a week. If you guys could see what I see on the stats, I'll put out a video. It'll be doing very well. It gets thousands of views an hour and then it drops just like always, but it can get to a pretty steady point. Some videos do better than others, 500 an hour, 200 an hour, every single hour until I upload the next video. And then that video drops off and dies. And the next one starts its same cycle. And the average video gets then between 10 and 20,000 views, where I think channels that put out 1 video a week or 1 video every 10 days, that roller coaster keeps riding for them. And those videos get up into the much larger numbers, which then attract new viewers, which I think is why I have so many returning viewers, but so few new viewers. So I'm actually amazed we've been able to grow at the rate that we have. But I think all the time, should I just do 1 video a week, take the time to script it, cover every single angle, make sure that everything I say is going to be absolutely perfect and let that thing ride? But I just love secular Bible study series. I love a Tuesday takedown. I love having a chance on Sunday to cover a big topic. So I don't know. It's not really what I want to do. I have a lot to say so far, somehow. I honestly thought when I started this channel, I thought, am I even going to be able to do this for a month? Like, I'm going to cover everything. But once you get into it, you guys should see, I keep one simple note in my phone of ideas for videos, whether you guys suggest them to me or they come about as I'm answering a comment and I say something, I'm like, oh yeah, that would actually be a good thing to cover. Or I see a video and I want to respond to it and I have hundreds written down there. So no shortage of content. But then what's hard is Friday rolls around and I'm going to film my Sunday video and I scroll through. I'm like, oh, I don't have the energy for that. Oh, that's going to take more time. Oh man, I don't know. I think someone else already covered that video. And even though there's so many, sometimes it can feel like there is nothing to say. I could do a lot more here. I think the main things I wanted to cover were the community, which we got to, and in terms of lesson learned, dealing with the negativity, navigating YouTube in general. I mean, there's been so much to learn. Setting up the Patreon account. I still want to convert all of this to a podcast, getting better at editing, doing the studio, figuring out lights and mics and cameras and all of that. And I'm still not perfect with it, but man, have we improved. Go back and watch some of those earlier videos. It's been a fun journey. I enjoy learning. I enjoy honing in and crafting a skill. YouTube allows me to be creative in a world where I really had no other creative outlets. So, almost done. Let's move in to future plans. There's a lot that I did accomplish this year that I wanted to. Getting on some other channels, having bigger conversations, talking to people from the other side of the aisle, getting into some of these playlists and segments, being consistent in general. But there's a lot I didn't get to do. I expected to end up doing debates this year. I wanted to have a lot more dialogues like the one that I had with Trent. So this year, I would like to do more of those things. I want to be more collaborative. And I think once I get done with Secular Bible Study Series, that might open up an opening in the week to be able to focus on that more. I also have had this idea for the call-in show. I think most call-in shows are more to argue the points, and they're totally beneficial. They help a lot of people. But I would love to have one that is more geared towards helping the person in the middle of their deconstruction. Someone had suggested the name The Fence, which I think is awesome, because then I can say, welcome, you're on the fence. And ideally, that's the idea of the conversation. You've got one foot on either side here in leaning towards atheism or falling back to your personal religion, whatever it might be. What's holding you back? What questions are still out there? How can I help? And not just me, but then in the comments, what advice do you guys have for these people? I think it would be an awesome structure for a show. Also, I don't want to be someone that just puts negativity out into the world. And I don't think that I am. I think that even though I cover things like this can't be true, or look how immoral this is, or here's the corruption within the church, or this is why religion fails, like, yeah, there's a negative element to those. I get that. And I wish that it was something more positive. Like, that's what's so awesome about getting to be a Christian or a believer. You're putting forward, even though I believe incorrectly, with more harm attached, something plus. God loves you. God has a plan for you. Come and be a part of this. I understand the appeal of religion because it is those things. At least that's the first line to come in the door. It's followed by many things that are not positive or inviting or inclusive. But I recognize just in general the fight between religion and atheism, if you want to just reduce it down to that. The atheist is the one that's saying, nah-uh, that's saying, not so fast, that's saying, this is harmful. And that can have this negative connotation. So I want to find ways on the channel to bring in more positivity. And that's the thing. Atheism isn't a religion, and I'm not a leader within the atheist religion that doesn't exist. But is there a way to create community outside of the comment section? Is there something that I want to help be part of building that gets people physically together who are like-minded and seeking the truth and interested in learning about these things? I don't know. It's a huge question, but it's one that I do want to explore at some point in the channel. And I think the biggest thing that is missing is community, and it's such a hurdle to overcome. I don't know the best way forward, but we can try something. And so that's something I'm going to be thinking about a lot this coming year. Also, just charity in general. I want to have revenue that is brought in by this channel do good and do good better, and kind of put my money where my mouth is. And so I'm going to be looking at taking a portion, and I haven't decided on any of this, so I'm not sharing details, but taking a portion of the ad revenue. I won't take any portion from the Patreon because I understand the people that give through Patreon are giving to support the channel, which let's talk about that really quick, and then we'll come back to the charity thing. There's 3 ways that I make revenue from this. It is ad revenue, just people who see ads on the video themselves. It is people who give money in super chats, which very appreciative. And it is people who are subscribed to the Patreon. And it is necessary. There are expenses, and many of them are past, although I'm still paying for them, like doing this room. And I know I still owe you guys a studio tour, but this has been monumental. I guarantee you, I would not have been able to keep up the same rate of 3.5 to 4 videos a week, still doing it in my office back in the house here that is attached. And it was a nifty little dime to do this and to upgrade equipment and to get the things needed. So again, 100% needed. Also, it's replacing other things that I did to make side money. So it is a choice between some of my other ventures that I was doing for income that is required for my family and our goals. And doing this instead, I lost out on the opportunity to make that money. So getting money for this is important. I need to get paid for the time that I put in. So again, thank you. But back to the charity thing. I would never take Patreon money to put towards charity because you guys can do that on your own. If you're giving to me, it's because you're trying to help the channel, and I will take it and it will help the channel. From the ad revenue, I'd like to take a certain percentage and tithe it off. And when I figure out exactly what that percentage will be and to where it will be given, I will let you guys know. But a goal of that, in addition to just doing the right thing, is for you guys to feel good. When you watch this channel, you are contributing to the well-being and the alleviation of suffering of others. Period. I want that to just be a staple here on the channel. And that's it. Thanks for being here, guys. The last thing I have to say, of course, again, for the 18th time, and you can't hear it enough, is thank you, especially if you made it this far. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking an interest. Thank you for helping me grow the channel. Thank you for your contributions. Cheers to 1 year. I'm excited for the next one. And until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support, my Iconoclast and Boris GVI, Jacob, Joe, Martin, Oliver, Perry, Rokkit, and Shawn, my Humanist heroes, Jarrod, James, and Kristi, my Atheist advocates, Caleb, Imposter, Jeff, Jeffrey, Karen, Sparky, and Todd, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. If you believe in the mission of the channel or you just enjoy the content, please consider joining these fine people. Thanks and have a great day.